Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Amya Kumar Das, associated with the Department of Sociology, Tezpur University. Today, in this session, we will begin with an introductory overview to the whole paper or whole course on contemporary social theory. Title of this module is From Sociological Theory to Social Theory, Introducing the course and its perspective. As we all know, sociological theory and methodologies were initially established by the forerunners of sociology like Karl Marx, Max Weber and Emil Durkheim. But its objectives and methods were more clearly delineated by the founding fathers like Auguste Comte and Emil Durkheim. So to understand this, we need to go through various phases and aspects how this sociological theory became social theory in terms of its acceptability and practice. This module briefly delineates about other modules which are part of this contemporary social theory paper and how it has been designed and framed. There are two phases which changed the way it has been theorized, the theorizing in the social theory. The first period refers to the post-Second World War period, and the second period is around 1990s, where we have that Washington Consensus, the globalization took up, the liberalization and privatization, they were introduced in various countries and nations. So these two periods are significant in terms of looking at this change or this shift or the transformation from this sociological theory to social theory. How various practitioners of sociology and the sociologists and the social scientists, they intervened all over the world. Initially, this frame of knowledge were emerged in the West, claiming the universality, superiority, and they said it should be replicated in other parts of the world to study the social processes in terms of scientific methods, which could be claimed as more authentic and superior and reliable. But eventually, when the people from third world countries and the peripheries like South Asia, Latin America and African context started challenging this domination of Western power over other people in the domain of knowledge production, then came various forms of social theories. So, there were transformation in the early period and the later period as well. Initially, when the history, sociology, and other disciplines like they were disciplines like economics, anthropology, history, philosophy were there. But after that, sociology emerged as a distinct discipline in the West, mostly in the 19th century, and in the 20th century, it gained prominence. It had to be specific to cater to the need of that time, and it emerged to study the distinct social, quote unquote social, and it became different from other discipline in terms of its methodology and methodological rigor. So, during that time, the Western form of knowledge dominated this so-called positivist discipline. They claim, like science studies the nature, sociology can study the society in scientific manner. So, slowly, when countries and nations, they were getting independence in various parts of the world from this colonization, they started questioning this superiority of knowledge system of the West. They started criticizing from this margin and they started developing their own form of knowledge where they could understand their own specificities and realities. The role of Frankfurt School and generation of new ideas and approaches in the case of the shift from sociological theories to social theories. So, we can see there are many challenges to the whole domain of ideas where this Western knowledge system established its supremacy over other forms of knowledge system, may it be in the natural sciences or in social sciences and humanities. The whole idea of binaries which they construct in terms of hierarchy, superior, inferior, good, bad, civilized, barbaric, so on and so forth, that notions of binaries were challenged by theories which were emerging from this periphery and margin. The transition from sociological to social theories signifies that the moment in history where an impetus to interdisciplinarity within sociology arose and was inevitably so because of the failure of universal models of sociological explanations to document reality adequately. The contradictory events that were taking place in the West went against the predictions of the sociological theorists. For an example, capitalism was not overthrown by the proletariat revolutions. The fallacy of reason and the pervert application of rationality and science to propagate racist ideologies. Increasing recognitions given to the role of culture, which till then was seen as regressive, decadent, and irreversibly in decline. So, if we look at all these developments and progresses in the domain of knowledge, philosophy, social criticism, we can see that how these claims of Western knowledge were fading away. The local knowledge systems were started questioning the dominant knowledge form. The supremacy and domination, this scientific knowledge which was trying to establish, they were proved wrong most of the times. So it created a kind of situation where other forms of practices, other forms of knowledge system started arising and started questioning these dominant notions of these binaries which were created by the Western form of thought. Orthodox Marxism underwent a crisis moment in which the revolutionary potential was fizzling out. There was a need for organic intellectuals, as Gramsci opines, would be needed who would articulate the needs of the working class people. The arrival of the neo-Marxists of the Frankfurt School like Horkheimer, Althusser, Adorno, Habermas marked the scene in which explanations for the various phenomena, for example the rise of authoritarian personalities, were sought from other disciplines like psychoanalysis, cultural studies, and literature, history, and so on and so forth. The disciplinary boundaries were being unsettled and readjusted for the purpose of accommodating multiple views. If we look at this development of disciplinary practices, this orthodox Marxism were also changing. There was a critical intervention by the theorists, social scientists, and philosopher and sociologists from this Frankfurt School gave a new field for discussion and new field to develop more social theories which were interdisciplinary in nature. Sociology, in its strict sense, they adhere to a particular methodological tools or methodological ways to strictly practice in its own domain, in its own boundaries. Whereas Social theory encourages us to bring in other forms of ideas which were not available inside these sociological theories or sociological methodologies. It encourages us to bring in other ideas from other disciplines. It gives us possibilities for an interplay between various subjects, thereby creating a more productive and fertile ground of knowledge system to understand the social realities and social processes in various parts of the world. If we look at these conditions, like various sociologists and philosophers like Althusser, Gramsci, Habermas, Adorno, Horkheimer, they have encouraged and strongly argued for the need for us to go beyond this kind of binaries and to have more options, more tools to analyze the social reality rather than restricting us or binding us to a particular method which was created by these sociological practices. So thereby there was a demand, there was call, there was appeal to go beyond this restriction and try to incorporate other methods, other methodologies, other ideas, other conceptual categories which will be more useful for us to understand the world. This period of post Second World War was marked by the rising sensitivity towards the futile attempts to restrict social science research to boundaries of technical sociology. What could be more illustrative of this claim than Horkheimer's inaugural lecture titled "The Present Situations of Social Philosophy and the Task of an Institute for Social Research," which highlighted such futility and gave thrust to an interpenetration of ideas from the sciences and philosophy, both of which are traditionally considered opposed in their nature. Apart from the critical theory of Frankfurt School, neo-functionalism, successor of the Pearsonian functionalism, brought in a diverse range of methodologies in understanding society. Together, both gave an impetus to studying society not only through a strictly sociological lens. As you can see, there were changes in methodologies, changes in approaches, changes in perspectives only to give platform to other form of knowledge system, whereby the main aim was to develop a kind of methods or theory which will be more holistic in nature rather than restricting. We could see from this all development and transformation over the period that how the strictness and the rigidity was breaking away. In that sense, we have seen the emergence of interdisciplinarity. That is to say, sociology in itself is an interdisciplinary practices it encourages, but through particular methods and methodology, but it shifts from sociological theory to social theory indicates that it must have a diverse background, diverse methodologies, that thereby there will be an interplay of various disciplines, various ideas, various concepts to make the case more strong to understand the social reality and social processes. That is what we have been discussing again and again in this module, which will delineates, which is show path for other things which are discussed in various modules in under this contemporary social theory paper. Sociological theory and social theory, whether it is a continuation or contradiction. If we look at the sociological theory, these theories, they have certain things in common and certain distinction and specificity within themselves. Sociology makes us to see the society in a particular manner. It gives us training and methodological tools to analyze the world in a particular sense. But critics say that it has given us a training in the format of the Western world to look at our own country, own societies, which is difficult and different. If you look at social theory is more broad than sociological theory, where it gives us possibilities, a high level of creative interplay between various disciplines. There are many theorists who do not belong to sociology per se, but their idea on social theory is very useful in the sociological domain. People like Sartre, Michel Foucault, Sudipta Kaviraj, their idea of sociological or for that matter social theory is very useful, and many sociologists they use in their own domain. So the work of Peter Winch titled The Idea of a Social Science, it accuses this singular authority or the rationality of social science or natural science discipline over this universal claim. It says it is totally false to claim that rationality, and we cannot judge or we cannot analyze the world in that particular singular universal rational analytical tool. In the middle of the 20th century, different theoretical paradigms they emerged. And if you look at the whole scenario, there were various development in the later phase. Important changes happened when there was a move towards incorporating different methods of studying the world. And the second important thing is that there was a move towards acknowledging pluralism in social theory or difference and diversity because of decolonization efforts. So, if we look at these changes and development in the field of knowledge, we would see that sociological theories are not contradictory to social theories. Rather, social theories tries to transcend itself and make the quote unquote sociological more meaningful, more vibrant, and more fertile, so that it can have more useful perspectives and concepts and analytical tool to understand the social reality. As we have seen, and we will see many more modules in under the part of contemporary social theory, that how these social scientists, philosophers and sociologists, they have criticized the idea of modern and modernity and modernization process, and they have suggested many more concepts and analytical tools whereby we can delink or come out of the shadow of modernity, which has captured and encroached many of the domains in the world knowledge. Decolonization process started, and they started posing serious challenges to these colonizers and the process of modernization and this whole idea of modern. They started developing various kind of concepts and theory which challenged the supremacy of their attitude. They say that this unilinear notion of this world development is not possible. Various theorists from this Latin American context, they showed that how the whole world order linked with one another in a chain system, in a dependency syndrome is being developed through this world system theory and dependency theory. They have shown how center or the core or the metropole, they are exploiting this periphery. These people or these countries which are at margin. So this kind of criticism were emerging from this margin and periphery to challenge the dominance of modern world views. So most of the time we have seen with this module, and in future also with other modules, we will see how binaries are being critiqued by various sociologists and post-colonial theorists. So how to go and further the binaries and beyond? We have seen this sociological theory that it tries to form a knowledge system where these are based on certain rules and regulation. Going back to Durkheim's work on the rules of sociological method, it suggests us that we need to follow certain guidelines to understand the social reality. But later on, due to the interventions of other social theorists, we could see there was a difference and a development in these theories. Mostly or prominently, we could term that as social theory. So, in this part, we have seen that the nationalist struggle for freedom began in various parts of the colonial world. It was realized that various medium of knowledge in the form of poetry, narratives, songs, and various others congregational modes were used to reclaim spaces and articulate the desire to throw out the British administrators. For instance, in India, understanding of one's society was articulated by several thinkers during the nationalist movements in India. None of these thinkers and personalities were sociologists per se. If we look at Gandhi's work, Tagore's work, Ambedkar's work, they were not regarded as sociologists. But in the later period, in the post-colonial era, many sociologists, many anthropologists, historians, they have worked on their work, how significant their work and writings to the social theory that we could see in the later phase after this post-colonial era. Around the same time, when the Frankfurt School theories were claiming an interdependent approach to research around the 1950s, Indian social thought, as one example of colonized country, was bubbling with different kinds of expression around important societal issues, which were culture specific and not technically only sociological in nature. Quest for alternative and different tradition was in reaction to the binaries of Occidental versus Oriental. To correct the course, Sujata Patel proposes for an international comparative position that could compare the subject positions and interconnections between the local and global levels. The move has been towards global integration with different kinds of trans-border flows and movements. In the wake of transitions in 1980s, social theories began to recognize the existence of multiple modernities and entangled modernities as opposed to a singular Euro-American model of modernity. So, the second turn in the sociology took place when theorists like Zygmunt Bauman, Anthony Giddens, Ulrich Beck started talking about late modernity, high modernity. Sociologists like Sujata Patel, she reminds us that sociologists should be mindful about the development of the current world or the present world. Because of this globalization and stretching of the space, we should be sociologists should be mindful to that universal approach. They should be more open to the ideas. Rather, she appeals that their consciousness should be cosmopolitan, or to appeal to develop a kind of cosmopolitan consciousness for more productive practices in the field of sociology. If we look at that, the sociologists and social scientists, they argue to be more productive and to more fruitful, we need to be not only particularistic, we need to be also universalistic in our nature. We should expand our own domain, keeping the whole world in the mind. At the same time, we should also work in the local field. So there should be more coherent thought and more interplay of ideas to have to develop a kind of method which will be more fruitful rather than restricting ourselves to the compartmentalized domain of knowledge. So, to summarize or to conclude, we can say that in this module paves the way for other modules to have discussion on various form of knowledge, various form of ideas which were developed by sociologists, social scientists and philosophers. How there has been a change from the strict sociological domain, sociological theory to social theory. By looking at modernity critically, this paper have various modules where various theorists have developed their own concepts and ideas to critically analyze and dismantle, unwind the whole process of modernity, and to develop certain theories, to develop certain conceptual tools which will be useful for people in the non-Western world, in the margin, in the periphery, to understand various social reality and social processes. Thereby, we will have no more a kind of constraint of this modern world views developed in the Western country, and to restricted ourselves and restricted self to understand the social world. Rather, we can have more options, more choices, more freedom to choose from these ideas and conceptual categories to understand the world more meaningfully. So, to understand more on this module and other modules, please log on to the EPG Pathshala website and consult readings and references. Thank you.